December 1944, Ardennes Forest, 05:12 a.m. Snow covered the trees. Engines whispered in the dark. Oberleutnant Carl Weiss sat inside his Panther tank, listening to American radio chatter through a captured headset. They sounded confused, disorganized, weak. He smiled. Another easy victory. Then one message came through, and his smile disappeared. In the winter of 1944, Germany launched its last great gamble, the Ardennes Offensive, what the world would later call the Battle of the Bulge. Hitler believed one final WWII could split the Allied armies and force negotiations. For tank commanders like Carl Weiss, it felt like a second chance. His Panther rolled slowly through frozen forest paths, its tracks crushing snow and branches. Inside, the crew stayed silent. Each man knew this might be their last campaign. But Weiss believed in his machine. The Panther had thick armor, a powerful gun, long range. Against it, American Shermans looked fragile. Burn easily, explode fast. In previous battles, he had destroyed 3 in one afternoon. So when his radio operator intercepted American transmissions, Weiss laughed quietly. Supply problems, lost units, confused commands. The Americans were unprepared, or so it seemed. At 06:03 a.m., Weiss positioned his tank on a ridge overlooking a narrow road. Perfect ambush point. Below, Allied vehicles began moving. Fuel trucks, half-tracks, light tanks, targets. He whispered, "Wait closer." His gunner adjusted the sights. Distance 800 meters. Wind calm. Trigger finger ready. Then, a new radio transmission cut through the static. Clear. Calm. Controlled. This is Thunder Actual. All units execute phase red. Repeat, phase red. Weiss froze. He had never heard that code before. Neither had his crew. But something in the voice. It wasn't panic. It was preparation. And suddenly, the forest around them began to move. At first, nothing happened. No explosions. No gunfire. No screams. Just silence. The Ardennes forest stood frozen, breathless. Weiss kept his eye pressed to the sight. Hold. Below, the convoy continued moving. Slow. Careless. Perfect. Then, the road suddenly disappeared in smoke. A thunderous blast erupted at the front of the column. An American engineer charge had detonated beneath the lead truck. Metal flew into the air. Men were thrown into the snow. Before Weiss could react, artillery shells began falling from the gray sky. Boom! 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 The forest exploded around them. Trees snapped. Branches rained down. Snow turned into steam. "We're under fire," the loader shouted. Weiss spun his turret. Left. Right. Too many targets. Too many threats. From behind the ridge, American Sherman tanks emerged. Not one. Not two. 6. Then more. They moved in formation. Spread out. Covering each other. Not confused. Not lost. Organized. Professional. Weiss felt a chill crawl up his spine. This wasn't chaos. It was choreography. Fire, he ordered. The Panther's gun roared. A Sherman exploded in flames. Another reversed behind cover. But immediately, return fire slammed into his hull. Clang! The impact shook the tank violently. Armor hit, no penetration. But the message was clear. They had been seen, targeted, tracked. Smoke shells burst around them. Visibility vanished. White clouds swallowed the ridge. Weiss could no longer see the road, or the convoy, or the enemy. Only shadows and echoes. Inside the tank, sweat formed despite the freezing air. Radio chatter filled the headset. American voices. Calm. Precise. Target marked. Flank left. Bring up air support. Air support. Weiss's blood ran cold. He looked up instinctively, though he couldn't see the sky. In previous years, German tanks ruled battlefields. Now, they were hunted from above. Moments later, a distant roar grew louder. Engines. Aircraft. P-47 Thunderbolts were coming. The trap was closing, and Weiss realized too late. That radio message hadn't been a warning. It had been a signal. Yakshi, Endi en Keskin Kismga Kurdik, Bu Yurda Kakwav plus Anglash plus Humid Sizzlik Burlashati, Shu Retentioni Osmanga Chikarati. Open Book Section 3, Steel Under Fire. The first thunderbolt appeared through the clouds like a dark shadow. Then another. Then 4 more. Their engines screamed across the frozen sky. Weiss looked up through his periscope. Fighter bombers. His voice was barely audible. The Americans had timed it perfectly. Artillery. Smoke. Armor. Air. 4 layers. 1 trap. Disperse, move now, Weiss shouted. The Panther reversed hard, crushing bushes and frozen roots. But the terrain betrayed them. Mud hid beneath snow. The track slipped. The tank lurched sideways. Stuck. Full power, he ordered. The engine roared. Nothing. They were trapped. Above them, a P-47 Dove. Its wings flashed. Rockets detached. White streaks cut through the air. Impact. The ground erupted beside them. Shrapnel smashed into the hull. The radio crackled with screams from nearby German units. Tiger hit. Panzer burning. Medic. Weiss's gunner fired blindly into the smoke. A Sherman vanished in sparks, but 2 more replaced it. Hydra. Cut one head to appear. Another rocket slammed into their rear armor. The engine compartment burst into flames. Warning lights exploded across the control panel. Fire in the engine, the mechanic yelled. Smoke poured inside. Burning oil filled the air. Men coughed. Eyes burned. Weiss grabbed the intercom. All crew prepare to abandon tank. No one argued. They knew. The Panther was finished. He opened the hatch. Cold air rushed in. So did machine gun fire. Bullets struck the turret. Ping, ping, ping. American infantry had moved in. Surrounding them. Weiss climbed out first. Snow blinded him. Smoke choked him. He jumped. Rolled. Fell hard. Around him, German tanks burned like giant torches. Black smoke rose into the winter sky. This was not a breakthrough. This was a massacre. From behind a fallen tree, Weiss watched Shermans advance methodically. No rush. No panic. Just procedure. Like engineers dismantling a machine. And suddenly he understood. The Americans hadn't won by having better tanks. They had won by having better systems. Better communication. Better coordination. Better timing. Germany had built powerful weapons. The Allies had built powerful networks. And networks always win. But the worst realization was still coming. Weiss was captured 2 hours later. Cold, exhausted, half-deaf from explosions. An American medic wrapped his burned hand without a word. No insults, no anger, just procedure, efficiency. He sat in the snow, watching Allied columns roll past. Endless trucks, fresh tanks, fuel convoys, mobile repair units. It didn't stop. It didn't slow. It didn't hesitate. This was not an army running on courage. It was an army running on logistics. In a prisoner-holding area, Weiss overheard American officers discussing supply routes, airfields, fuel reserves, replacement crews. They spoke about tomorrow. Germany only spoke about today. Back in Berlin, propaganda still promised victory. Newspapers praised heroic resistance. Maps were colored optimistically. But on the ground, reality was different. By January 1945, the Ardennes offensive had failed. Germany had lost over 600 tanks. Thousands of experienced crewmen were gone. Irreplaceable. Weiss was sent to a POW camp in France. There, he met other tank commanders, all with the same story. Early confidence, sudden collapse, overwhelming coordination. One officer said quietly, "We didn't lose to Shermans. We lost to radios." After the war, Weiss returned to a ruined homeland. No parades, no medals, no empire, only memories of burning steel and frozen forests. Years later, he would write in his diary, "We built the strongest tanks. They built the strongest system. And the system crushed us." The Battle of the Bulge was not Germany's last hope. It was Germany's last illusion.